The meeting of the Stony Brook Community Development District. This is Tuesday, January 28th, 2020. Time is 9 a.m. We'll let the record reflect all supervisors are present at roll call. Ms. Chairwoman.
Do I have any public comments from anyone? John Rankin, do you want to start, please? And again, you have a 5-minute limit.
Good morning, I'm Joe Mike. I live on Braxfield Loop. First, I'd like to thank the board for all the work and effort that you folks do to help improve the value of living in Stony Brook. That said, I have two thoughts for your consideration. The first, I'm wondering if we can spend a little bit of time and energy and money on the wall that is behind hole number 1. It's a bit of an eyesore as you're pulling out. So first thought. The second is not necessarily improvement, but more on a safety issue. I play golf on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and every time I play, I see people crossing the median. And that median, to me, is a safety risk. I'm evidence of that, having suffered a fall on those medians. So I'm suggesting that we take some time and energy and put some effort towards leveling out a couple spots on the median to cross over from the pro shop to the first aisle of traffic and also to the second aisle of traffic. I don't think it would cost a lot of money to just level it and put pavers in there or whatever, but make it so that it's accessible for people that are parking in the second or third row to be able to come across the parking lane without having to come up and cross over a hill that could be covered with leaves and a sprinkler system underneath. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
That's a good one. We would have to get Pt.1 involved since that's their property.
Okay.
And yeah, I was going to bring up that wall myself today. It looked pretty bad.
Thank you. And that's all their hands.
Eileen Keegan Bongiorno, Braxfield Loop. Here, basically, we've had a couple of injuries to wildlife, specifically birds, in the past few weeks, and it was clear in the process of trying to rescue the first bird, it was an anhanger with a dog leash wrapped around its beak. Took 4 or 5 days of residents trying to capture the bird, but the problem was it was on golf course property. So I'm trying basically to get clarification from the CDD that as to what your protocol is when you or your staff find an injured animal or bird, and if we're dealing with after hours when your folks are gone, what options residents have. It was very, very difficult to do that. I did find out Saturday night. We decided after 5 days we were going to pitch in and hire a wildlife rescuer who agreed to come on Sunday, but it was late Saturday night by the time we figured out that we were going to do this. And I was told at that point somebody got in touch, I guess, with Jeff Saturday night to find out what the protocol is. And we found out at that point, in order to have a private company come on the golf course on Sunday, that they needed to have insurance or sign a liability waiver. Yet we didn't have a form, so I quickly drafted one. So I'm sort of committed to be able to provide the people in this community with some information on what they can do, but at the same time I'm trying to be respectful that we don't, we're treading onto property that really we shouldn't be. So if there's somebody, if you don't have anything in writing, if there's somebody on the CDD board that I can work with to try and capture that information and get it out to folks in our community, it would be wonderful.
Well, this is a better question for John, but my understanding when he comes across it, they call it crow or animal
Conservancy,
yes.
Southwest Florida.
Yeah, and usually they'll come out and take care of it. I don't know why they didn't come. Why did Crow not come out this time?
Well, The issue was, several calls were made to Crowian Conservancy. The bird, this particular bird had mobility and was also, had a tendency to go between the trees overlooking, I think it's 13th fairway, right around that little lake, as well as jumping on the rocky ledge. So they said where the bird had mobility, it would be crazy to send a volunteer out to try and do what we did for 5 days, which was chase this thing. So that was part of the issue, but nevertheless, even if they were willing to come out, I was sort of kind of leading the process. I didn't know what your rules were. I didn't know, I didn't want to...
We've dealt with Crow in the past. They have, the obviously the liability, and then they have all the I's dotted and T's crossed. And, the main concern would be that someone comes out and they don't have any kind of insurance and they slip and fall, then we're liable.
I understand that.
So if you've got some kind of form that you created, we can run through it and put it part of our procedures. But, once again, this is more of a question for John. And
John?
Okay. The golf course superintendent. And if you ever have anything like that in the future, he's who I would call.
And if he isn't available, is there a point person? I mean, I'm happy to come out and talk to you a little bit more, Jeff, about this rather than take up time.
He should be available at any time because he has a company cell phone and he lives right down the road.
So it's a matter of having his cell phone available.
Yes.
Well, we did approach him, but sorry to say, they weren't any help. We approached, I left 2 messages for him and did not get any response. So he's generally very good, and I do want to say that. I've asked him in the past to help. It might have been a busy day, but he never returned the call, and we did flag one of your staff down who got on the phone, talked to John, and John said we can't be doing that. So we...
Well, I think what he was saying was he personally, we should have called Crow. I don't understand what was going on.
Yeah.
I'll find out.
And it could have been a busy day. If I could follow up with somebody here, just so that I'm trying to develop some sort of plan that people can follow, and we'll make it available to residents in whatever way we feel most appropriate. So I just need real clear clarification on how to do that and make sure I'm giving them the proper information.
It's my phone number. You just call me in.
Awesome, thanks, Jim.
Okay. Anyone else? Lou?
I'm Lou Frith. I live on Brixham Run Loop, and I just really have a couple comments that I was told that there's going to be a discussion on the wetlands, the 200 plus acres of wetlands that we have back here, about what we're going to do with it. And this came up in 2016 when I was still on the board. And one of the things that I've talked, and I was kind of in favor of it a lot at that time. I'm no longer in favor of it, just to make that clear. I've talked to one of the managers at Bonita Springs, and part of the problems that they've had with wetlands where they've taken over wetlands and then they get other wetlands in, well, they can take whatever, as long as they have a certain number of acres in perpetuity or that's set aside for wetlands, and they get more, they can take part of that off and do whatever they want with it. And I know they've told us that if they take that over, that that we'll get the first option to get it back. Well, if you believe everything the government tells you or a government agency tells you, you're a fool. Right off the bat, they can do what they want because you're never going to get it back, regardless of what they do with it. The reason that they had all the flooding down on Dean Street and most of the east side of Old 41 was because of wetlands that they had taken over years ago, and then they took it out of perpetuity or out of wetlands, sold it to a developer, and it built up to the point that it jammed the water right-of-ways up, and it allowed all of that to flood. So there's like 3-4 feet of water in that area. I don't want to see that happen to Stony Brook because so many of our residents have talked about flooding over around the condos in different areas, because when we get 6-8 inches of water or in a week's time or more, that you know how much water, how much the lakes raise up. And we had one, Dr. Schwartz, that used to come in and aggravate us all the time. She's a nice lady, but she didn't understand exactly what was going on there, that the lakes drain off, and they drain off into that wetlands. And without that wetlands, we have no place for our watershed. That is our watershed, and we have to keep that. And I just want the board to keep that in mind, and I want all the residents to know that. Yeah, it cost us a little bit of money, but it could cost you a heck of a lot more down the road. Thank you.
I have the same comments about that, but I was going to wait till it came up on the agenda. You want me to make my statement now?
Thank you.
Good morning, thank you. I'm Dan Mara, and I live at 21512, Bellhaven Way, here in this community, naturally. It's our second home here, so we're real proud of the community. As to the preserve area, I see that's somewhere over 200 acres, maybe 271 according to one I read on paper. I would like to reflect back to 2017 when Irma came through. There were two tropical storms setting off in the Gulf, one 4 weeks before Irma and one 2 weeks before Irma. And the rainfall that actually fell on our golf course was excessive of 10 inches per tropical storm. I wish John was here. I think it was even more than 10 inches, and then along came Irma. If you're a golfer, when you get to the number 1 and number 15 tee box, look back across the lake, the side that the restroom would be on. I'm the 4th house up from the restroom. There's a big boulder in our yard. It's probably 6 to 8 steps up from the lake level right now. When we vacated in September of 2017 for Irma, the lake had come up to that boulder and was actually touching the lake side of that boulder. If you had like a surveyor would use, if you would look at that level and then look at the top of the hill before it levels out and come to my home, I only had about that much left on the lake before it would get in my house. So I'm very much against this. I think we need the whole 200 and some odd acres for runoff, just like the other gentleman said, because I've been through it and watched it, and the lake comes up rather rapidly in the beginning, but does level off. As to that number 15 fairway, when you got to the green during that time, the lake had backed up all the way to the cart path by the green and was starting to come over the cart path. I think you would know where we were. So we really need all of that acreage. We're going to get wet if we give it away. I agree with him about the politicians, and not that they're bad or they're crooked, but boards change. You put other people on a board that you think are going to do exactly what you say. They step down, they move away, pass away, and then you have other people on the board that have different ideas. It would be a wrong thing to give it away, even with the restrictions that it can't be built on or whatever. We're better off adding another $10, $15, $20 a year per house to our home or to our CDD fee on our taxes than we are giving it away. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ben. Does anyone else have any comments? Yes.
Thank you. Richard Bongiorno. I'm on Braxfield Loop. I am also very concerned about the acreage in the preserve area. I know there's a lot of contrary rationale, not only from the two speakers this morning, but the board as well. Where is the acreage going, folks? He said we're going to lose this acreage. We're not losing the acreage. It will always be there. And so it's very, very important for us, not only for our water quality, but also for the depositing of excess water. It's not going anywhere. The discussions with the village has been very, very clear that in working with the CDD board and the CDD's attorney and the village attorney, there would be clear, definite contract guidelines. And if anything were to happen with that preserve area, whether a developer's interest to purchase it, or if for some reason the village no longer wanted to maintain that, it would always, according to hopefully a good legal draft, revert back to the CDD, which is us. So we are not giving that land away. And there is an economic benefit to us. One fellow said, add $20 a door to the CDD taxes. I don't want to add any more CDD taxes. They're already taking tax money for a bond that has died almost a year ago. I don't want to pay any more taxes, but I think it's key to note, and unless the CDD's attorney can give us some other guidelines, we are not going to lose that preserve acreage. And if the contract is drafted, and I'm ending now, it would always revert back to the control of the CDD board, of which I absolutely agree it should. Thank you very much.
Just a correction, we're not collecting money and paying a bond that was paid off a year ago. That bond was paid off a year ago.
You're not collecting taxes anymore?
I didn't say that. We are not collecting money to pay off a bond that was paid off a year ago. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know, that's semantics, Chris, because it's not coming into our pocket.
I didn't say
It's
that
going
either.
into the CDD's coffers.
I didn't say we're not collecting taxes, but we are not paying off a bond that was paid off a year ago. That bond was paid
I
off.
didn't say you were paying on, I said the bond has been paid. And you're still collecting taxes from us that is going into some type of a...
That is true. We are collecting taxes that are going into our funds. That bond was paid off a year ago.
That's what I was saying.
Okay.
And Richard explained what they're for, to build the reserves that we depleted during Irma, and to put money aside for landscaping. So it's not like we're just holding money, we're holding the money for the benefit of the community. So, okay.
The CDD has been collecting money from us for 22 years. If you're, that's fine, thank you, Eileen.
Yeah. Okay, the staff reports. John is not here. I spoke with John last week, and I spoke with Crosby this morning. Things are fine at the maintenance shed. He just had one question with the financials that we get into later about the cards, the leases on the cards between John and Jeff. Jeff, did he say anything else to you?
No.
Okay.
Just things are going well, and on the agenda is the potting green. We'll talk about that when we get to it.
Okay, so John's up in Orlando and superintendent's meeting, so that's what it could be.
Did he say anything about some of the other greens?
Not to me.
Is there some that are getting pretty stressed out?
Right.
You know, I don't know whether that's a couple things. I don't know what you can really do.
Well, he's trying to cordon some off, and, we can talk about that when we get to the greens and the repairs, because the weather has not helped at all with them, so. And because of the volume of golfers that we've had, which is pretty bad, you need the money, but it takes a toll on these golfers. So, okay, Jeff?
As of 25 days in January. January, we're up $41,000 the budget. This is the best January I think we've had in probably 4 or 5 years. We've had one day that was affected by weather, and it was half a day. Last Wednesday it was in the 30s in the morning, which caused a substantial reduction in some of the play from a couple of different leagues that play with us. But all in all, it's been a really good month. Looks like we're going to go over rounds, we're going to go over revenue, and it just kind of lays it out there that it's all very weather-dependent business. Flip side of that is, we do have a lot of traffic, and, the Greens are getting a little stressed in some areas, but I think it'll be fine. It'll get a little bit warmer weather, the ground temperatures go up a little bit, you should have some growth there. I'm not overly concerned. I'm concerned about the pine green now. Junior golf's going great. We went to the PGA show last week. We were in Orlando, and things went well there. Bought some new stuff for the shop. Saw some new cool stuff. All in all, things are going really good this month. We just had the Chicago guys here. They were here for the weekend. They were Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They seem to have fun. They drink a lot of beer. And they are donors to, when they first came here, they donated to another charity. And over the last couple of years, they've been so impressed with what they saw on Saturdays. They switched to Stony Brook Junior Golf. Last year they gave us $3,300. That's great. And I would assume it'd be something around that again this year. So they're really nice guys. I know some of you guys got to know them, gone out. They're good guys.
They could not have raved more about the condition of the course, even with the cold weather. The staff in the pro shop, the concession staff, they were just looking forward to coming back again next year.
Look forward to that. That's all I have.
Okay.
I think
Jeff,
the
what-
greens, every year at this time, we kind of run into this. With the cool weather, the overcast, it's hard for that grass to recover. But I played Saturday, besides, of course, yeah, they're rolling really good. And I chalked it up to weather, really.
Stress on the parameters.
Right, exactly.
So, and John will probably kill me for talking about it. I'm trying to explain this, but so they mow 12 to 6, 3 to 9, 2 to 8 in different, but the perimeter always has to be mowed in one pattern. You can't really get away from it. So the perimeter will tend to get stressed. Colder weather, ground temperature cold, a lot of play, that happens. So if you look at where the stress is, it's on the perimeter.
And those overcast days kill it too.
Yeah.
Yes. December was not really a great month for weather. It was okay, but it was a lot of overcast.
So get your ball in the perimeter, put it in the flag.
And just step over the perimeter and out.
Wow.
I never thought of that. It's not an issue here.
Jeff, I know a couple questions have come up about the flags and putting those cups in it because the rims of the holes are getting kind of beat up from people just leaving the flags in and putting their hands in it. No reflection on the gentleman, but when you have a big hand and you're pulling it out,
So there's a new thing out. It's a slide. It goes like this. Put it on the bottom of the flag. Go like this. And the balls will sit there and slide it up. Pick the balls up. So it came out, and I thought, well, that's pretty cool, but I kind of like to see what happens. So I waited, and I let my other friends buy them and put them on their golf courses. And Heritage Palms, I don't know if you guys know where that's at. It's up in Fort Myers. My friend John Osbrink is the head pro there. It's been kind of an issue for them because people pulling them up tend to tear the edge as it goes up. And they do the same kind of volume per se. They're probably 250 to 300. It's all member play. It's a bundle community. There's 1,100 members there. It's 36 holes. He does, 500 players a day. Now, Cypress Lake, Kelly Greens, a couple other places I've talked to, not a problem. I don't have any problems, any issues with a couple like that. So when John gets back from the trade show, I'll talk to him and we'll probably put him in. But I just wanted to be clear that would work. Because you never know, people come out and say, oh, that's a great invention, and then you put it in, that's not going to work. So I think we'll do it probably by this next meeting, we'll have them in.
All right, thank you. Because I know people are questioning that, so.
Yeah, just
It's safer. Get them on bar 8.
Okay.
Bar 8.
Anything Anything else, Jeff? Anything else is good staff-wise? The next is the discussion of the preserve area in the back. I put an article in the paper so that people would understand what we're up against and what we're doing. Hearing from several people here. At this point, and I'll get other board members to jump in, Steve Sarkozy seemed to let it up to us, and it was kind of will be our decision. I have also spoken with someone in the environmental department of Bonita Springs, asking their questions, looking in the communities around here. I know during Irma and all that rain that we had prior to that, it was the first time Grand Deza ever flooded, and it's because all that preserved and the trees that were now apartments, there was no place for the water to go. So, we have to continue to look into it, and we will continue to research it. It's not something that I think we should jump into right now. I think there's a lot more research that needs to be done with regard to that. Any board members? Ed?
I'm sort of with Dan Mara there, because I remember I didn't evacuate, but that lake on number 3 it was getting pretty close to my house. And I'm thinking, for saving $30, $35 a year.
We've been 22 years at this.
Yeah, right.
And we have a lot of experience. I just hate to see it turned over to some other agency.
And the cost of flood insurance, should we turn that over and should things change there, flood insurance is way more than $35 a year or whatever it is on our reserves for the HOA. So, these are things that we have to look into. I spoke with my insurance agent and just said, if I had to get flood insurance here, he's working up a price, just so that we know where we stand with this. But it's not something that I think we need to do right this minute.
$800 to $1,000.
I just paid my flood insurance, it was $480.
Right.
Mine is $800, okay.
So, that's what we have to look at, and, the actual cost down the road, and do we want to give it all up? So,
Well, Elaine, that's read in our little paper, that we have costs involved with maintaining that area. What do we do to preserve? I didn't think we were allowed to touch it.
well, the thing is that the preserved vegetation cannot grow onto our property, and our vegetation can't grow there. So it's kind of we're kind of clearing that out so that, and the village said that they would continue that.
We have to keep the exotics down.
Right. So,
what, annually, I think, John, or they go in and, try to,
Probably twice a year.
it's,
Couple of years
try to get rid of the Brazilian peppers and, all the stuff that we planted that don't belong here. So that's where that money goes to.
and when Lloyd was here, just let me finish up, Richard. When Lloyd was here last time, I think the budget was $40,000 or $43,000 a year. But that's not just for that, because there are other preserve areas within the community that the HOA takes care of. So that, and we would still have to take care of that. It would just be that portion that we would, John.
A couple of years ago, this whole thing came up. We're allowed, from the fence back there, to go in 10 feet. We're allowed to clear that out. A resident can climb that fence and do 20 feet. Then that's his own thought. He wants to do it deeper. But we as a CDD, we can only do 10 feet.
Or the HOA. The HOA can only do,
Well, whoever.
yeah, the HOA is paying for it. They're hiring the people to do it. They can only do that.
10 feet. But a resident on his own can go in and do 15, 20 feet.
Not legal.
Where did that come from? Wait a minute, where did that come from,
Yeah.
John?
No, that's been a couple of years ago when we first talked about it.
Okay. Could they? Yes. Are they legally
Yeah,
supposed to?
yeah.
No.
I think council might want to speak on that. Our fences.
Okay, Dan. Dan?
No.
Residents cannot go into the preserve.
No, they are not
They're
to.
anything.
And as the CDD, we've had issues with some of our preserve areas where residents have gone in and decided that they didn't like the way it looked and start cutting things out. That can't happen. Those preserves are there. And I know after Irma, and John's not here, but he could vouch for it, people were complaining that there were dead trees in the preserve area. Nature has to take care of itself. We could not go in and clean that up. So, have residents gone in? Yes. Are they supposed to? No. Could there be a fine for it down the road? Possibly. So we need to know that only the people that are hired can go in there and do that. And the $43,000 that the HOA budgets every year is for the preserve area in the back, but also preserve areas within the community. So it wouldn't be, we would still be paying towards that.
Is it 50/50 then?
I think Lloyd said it's like 2023, so, it's about that. So, I just don't think for $20,000 or $23,000 we should jump on this bandwagon that quickly. I think we need a lot more research and a lot more real substantial.
Well, I know there's just comments being made here, but I have a couple. One, if flood insurance is looked at, well, that would be a resolution, not a solution. A resolution, I mean, if you had to use the flood insurance, it wouldn't really be too good a thing for your house that you had to use it.
That's right.
If we get rid of that thing. So and it's kind of like all the other insurances. You got it, but
You don't want to
you
use
don't
it.
have to use it,
Insurance is, I don't know about that. I've been fighting since August to get a new roof, and I've been denied. It's now going to, we're filing a suit over it. So I'm not in favor of just saying get insurance, because you got a 6-month fight on your hand.
Right, and you're absolutely right. Just to say that it would cost $400 to $1,000, whatever, or we're paying $25 to $30 a year in our HOA fees. So, those are things we have to look at. So, and we will continue to look at it, and you will be updated as things go on. But, I'm glad that the...
Like most things, the devil's going to be in the detail.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, finish up. You go ahead, finish up.
Well, and I'm sure there's been a lot written about this, and because of what's going on in our country, I kind of don't read as much about all this stuff as I used to. So I'd like to know, do we know the intent of why Estero wants to take the stuff that we shouldn't want? So why would they want?
Okay. Crystal.
Well, the village has made it clear to us, and they were here at the last meeting, that they are concerned about 951. That was the original plan, was 951 was going to cut through the preserve there. They are extending, Collier County is extending Logan to Bonita Beach Road. So if you look at a map, you could say, well, I could see if they extend that, why wouldn't they want to try to, Lee County, come back in and try to, get that seed planted again. And I believe the village. I think that's why they really want to do it, from the people I've talked to. I've talked to our local state representative, and he agreed that the village would have a stronger case against an eminent domain claim if Lee County would decide to do that. So the flip side of everything we're saying here is, yeah, of course, none of us want to get flooded. None of us, we need that area to drain, but potentially, if Lee County decided to eminent domain that and redo 951, that's not going to be a floodplain anymore either. So what would you rather, it's 6 of one, half dozen another. Again, I haven't made a decision on where I feel on it, but it's all going to come down to what we talked about. Will we, I don't really look at it as the way I envision it. Again, the lawyers get to figure all that stuff out. But, I don't look at it as a sale more than of an annex. You're controlling it, but we ultimately have a say in it because we threw things out to the village, such as we would have first right of refusal. We could basically not allow, well, the agreement as it is doesn't allow development on that land. And they would have to stick with that, I don't know, what's it called? And the original
Conservation.
Yes, conservation.
conservation, they would have to stay within those conservation easement rules. And And I know we can all say, yeah, it's government, they can do whatever they want, and I don't disagree with that statement, but that's just theory. This is all theory right now, until we get something really in writing. But I know from our discussion with the board that we had with the village, I think the board was in line with, we're not just going to give it away, sell it, whatever you want to do, and then we won't have any say. We really want to try to maintain some strings there that we can pull if things start looking like, nah, they're not holding up the way we thought it would work out. Even to the agreement, again, this was verbal, but I brought up that if it would sometime down the road, county come in, state, any government entity come in and try to eminent domain that land, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen, but there would be a financial condition to that whatever entity, whether it's us, again, the village owns that land or has possession of that land, they would get that money. And I said, one thing I want to see in that provision is if it would get eminent domain, that Stony Brook would get that money and not the village. So those are obviously things that have to get put in writing, have to be black and white. We have to read it and say, okay, yeah, we agree to this, or no, we don't. So, just FYI.
I just wanted to comment for those that have been here for a lot of years. I mean, we purchased in 18 years ago, and I know the 951, which essentially we keep calling it a road, but it's almost like a mini highway.
Yeah.
Their original plan was to take over the back of our preserve and go
The same
right
land we're
to
talking about.
Grand
The
Isle.
same exact
So
land.
it is a little scary. It's not a small little road. This is a highway, and I'm anxious to see where this goes, because they're already at Bonita Beach Road. They're 6 miles from us at this point, and it makes me nervous to think, are we going to lose that preserve?
Chris, I want to thank you for giving the other side of that. You articulated the 951 very well, so I thank you for that. And I agree with Eileen that my main concern is to always to have the CDD board have ultimate authority